Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'd like to officially welcome you to this side event that's happening, of course, alongside the PREPCOM committee meetings. This event in particular being hosted by UNIDO and FAO. And of course, the topic of discussion for today is how to match some of the continent's greatest assets, being the vast amounts of land that we do have, and also some of the amazing and innovative youth that we do have that are hungry for employment, but unfortunately are faced with the consequences of not realizing that employment. Before we do get going with the event for this evening or this afternoon, depending on which time zone you are in, I would just like to ask and confirm that everyone can hear and can see me. If at all you are having any issues, please do let us know in the chat and we will see what we can do before we officially get going with the program. I would also like to draw to everyone's attention the fact that there will be a translation facility that is available, translating the statements made in English to French and also vice versa, so that we are all on the same page and we are all able to understand one another this afternoon or this evening. With that said, I think that we can officially begin the program for today. My name is Fifi Peters, as I did say, and it gives me great pleasure to moderate the session that is happening right now. As you do know, we are here to talk about how we can better look at reviewing the natural resources that we've been endowed with as a continent, being the land, and also being the growing youth population that is wanting access to the economic opportunity that the land can potentially afford it. Happy Africa Day, of course, to everyone. We are celebrating the forming of the African Union some 58 years ago today, and it's quite a timely conversation that we are having as we, of course, celebrate Africa Day. Of course, there have been quite a number of successes that the continent has been able to achieve since the AU was first formed in 1963. There's also quite a lot of shortfalls or shortcomings, namely our underperforming economies, the growing amount of poverty on the continent, as well as the inequality. I have been moderating webinars for the past 12 months, a welcomed innovation of COVID-19 that has helped me keep bread on the table. But a recurring theme in most of the panel discussions that I have hosted has been the fact that COVID-19 did give the world the opportunity to pause and rethink and reconfigure its way forward in a way that is better and a way that is a lot more inclusive for people who had been sidelined. And I would then ask us to do the same today as we talk about harnessing the potential of the agricultural sector, growing more agripreneurs in the sector, and of course, helping the sector as well as the continent realize its true potential, particularly in the least developed countries on the continent. I think at this stage, we all know what to do. And we all know what needs to be done. And I think that we all agree that what needs to be done certainly needs to be done at a much quicker pace for us to avoid any further crisis after we recover from the COVID-19 pandemic and usher ourselves into a post-COVID-19 world. And therefore, I'm looking forward to the engagement from the audience that is joined in on this webinar from all over the world. And I encourage you to feel free to participate in the discussion that will be taking place for the next hour or so. And you can do so in the chat function. Remember, again, there will be a translation available, so feel free to communicate in either English or French, whichever language you are most comfortable with. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to the first speaker that we will be hearing from this this evening and this afternoon. And our first speaker will essentially be opening the first meeting of the preparatory committee for the fifth United Nations Conference on the Least Developed Countries that is set to take place in Doha, Qatar next year. Allow me to introduce you to Mr. Lee Young, who is the Director General at UNIDO. Let us listen to what he has to say.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to join you at this virtual side event today. The impact of the COVID-19 pandemic has been felt particularly strong in least developed countries. While the catastrophic health shock could be contained in most LDCs so far, the economic consequences impacted the world's most vulnerable and the least resilient economies the hardest. But despite the continuing pandemic, we remain positive and seek to make the best out of the opportunity to build back better. There's so much we can do to help LDCs in getting back on track towards the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. We need to continue reducing poverty and the inequalities and make sure that no one is left behind. There's a great potential in the demographic shift of LDCs. LDCs currently already account for 20% of the world's youth. By 2050, the proportion of LDC youth is expected to increase to 1 in 4 young people worldwide. The implications of this shift are wide-ranging, particularly in terms of the potential market size and the dynamism, but also including potential challenges in labor markets, education, and health, urbanization, and migration. Currently, a majority of youth in LDCs living in the rural areas where agricultural and non-farm activities are unable to provide the quantity and the quality of jobs to meet the employment demands and aspirations of today and tomorrow. Indeed, youth and underemployment and the lack of opportunities has become a serious problem. Recognizing the vital importance of nurturing a vibrant agriculture sector while also providing an enabling ecosystem opportunities for young women and men, UNIDO continues to provide youth action-oriented policies and programs to support governments and the regional economic communities to foster their agribusiness development. In this regard, the UNIDO FAO continent-wide Opportunity for Youth Africa program, in partnership with the African Union, the private sector, and many other stakeholders, provide support to young entrepreneurs through complementary levers such as vocational training, ensuring better quality and quantity of production, facilitating financing, promoting innovative technical and digital solutions, and access to markets for selected high-potential agro-value chains. The OYA program supports a better enabling environment for agribusiness and the food systems to become more efficient, competitive, and generate growth. This partnership will strengthen the delivery of contributing entities and allow us to collectively achieve a much larger impact. While OYA was launched in 6 pilot countries, Cape Verde and Democratic Republic of Congo, Ghana, Kenya, Tunisia, and Zambia, we are proud that an increasing number of member states have expressed interest in joining the program. UNIDO, together with its partners, stands ready to assist the member states in providing opportunities and hope for their young populations as they seek to engage in the agricultural, agribusiness, or industrial sector. Excellencies, youth are one of LDC's greatest assets. I'm therefore very pleased that this session will discuss the specific challenges we need to address and the important opportunities for a sustainable and inclusive economic progress of LDCs. I wish you a successful and productive discussion. Thank you.
And thank you to Mr. Young there for the opening remarks, a very welcomed message that has just been delivered. Noting the facts that things have been tough for the LDCs, particularly amongst the past year, as we have seen that the COVID-19 pandemic and its effects have unfortunately fallen a lot more on vulnerable countries in the least developed country space. But also noting that doesn't have to be all doom and gloom. There is a bright side. There's a number of initiatives on the go. And of course, there's a lot that we can do to make the necessary changes to help realize the full potential of our economies and of the agricultural sector, to be specific. I do understand that there are a number of people who are walking into this virtual room still. Thank you so much for taking time to join us. And if you have missed or you have missed some of the opening remarks, I just wanted to bring to your attention that we appreciate your time, and we certainly look forward to your engagement as we are here to discuss some of the challenges that are facing LDCs, particularly in the agricultural space, and how these challenges can be overcome to harness the full potential of the youth that are either unemployed or underemployed. You can participate in the session by adding or weighing in, sharing your thoughts in the chat function. It should be right there at the bottom of the icon of your Zoom screen. You can also pay attention to the translation facility that you have at your disposal should you need. Some of our speakers are French speaking. You'll be able to hear exactly what they have to say with the translation, and also vice versa from English to French and French to English. Moving on, as I did mention, that the session is a partnership between UNIDO and FAO. And I would like to introduce you to our next speaker, who will be speaking on behalf of the Food and Agriculture Organization. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to hand you over to Mr. Q Dong-yu, who is the Director General at the organization, and he is standing by for his opening message.
Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, this preparatory committee is taking place at a critical time. The COVID-19 pandemic is expected to affect economic growth in the least developed countries. And even before registering a single case of contagion, most of LDCs were suffering from the disruption caused by the pandemic to the global economy. This country faces a range of challenges, from hosting 40% of the world impoverished to the battery critical environment issues, while many of them are also coping with fragility and conflict. Globally, an unprecedented 255 million jobs were lost as a result of the pandemic, leading to a sharp increase in poverty and inequalities. The loss in labor earnings has been distributed unevenly, with youth, women, and low-skilled individuals seeing the sharpest declines in disposable income. Jobs in rural areas have also been affected, deepening poverty and hunger. Restriction in urban rural mobility and disruptions on the supply side affected production and earnings for agricultural workers, which constitute the bulk of the employment in the LDCs. Distinguished guests, developing human capacity is the key. Demographically speaking, LDCs are young. Currently, they account for 13% of world population with a median age of 20.3 years, and 1 in 5 of the world youth will be born in the LDCs by 2030. Investing in the young population through the quality education, health care, decent jobs, and skills is a precondition to ending extreme poverty and creating more inclusive societies. The agricultural sector is at the heart of the economics of the LDCs. It accounts for a large share of their GDPs and has the potential of creating strong youth dividend. Harnessing the creativity, talent, energy of the youth is the key in transforming agri-food systems into powerful lever for achieving economic transformation and sustainable growth. FAO places a special emphasis in youth. We have recently launched our Rural Youth Action Plan, developed in collaboration with members, UN entities, and youth organizations. In our new strategic framework, we acknowledge youth as future managers of the eco and agri-food systems. They therefore need to be explicitly targeted to ensure the inclusive economic development that is resilient to the future shocks and that contributes to the realization of SDGs. FAO and UNIDO have joined forces on many occasions to support their members enhance the business ecosystem by creating more jobs and opportunities for young people. One concrete example is FAO UNIDO program Opportunities for Youth in Africa that is endorsed by the African Union. This program is committed to accelerate job creation in agri-food sectors and envisions youth as agropreneur, mediating Africa competitive engagement in agricultural value chains. Ladies and gentlemen, you can count on FAO for support and cooperation in stimulating decent employment opportunities for rural youth in the agricultural and agribusiness sector for better production, better nutrition, a better environment, and a better life, leaving no one behind. I thank you.
And thank you to you, sir. In tying in with the Spirit of Africa Day, which I believe the continent has been celebrating, notwithstanding, of course, the shortcomings and the targets that we didn't hit yet, let's hear from a representative of the African Union itself, of course, as we do commemorate the forming of the bloc and the institution as it is. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure that I do introduce you to Her Excellency Miss Josefa Leonel Correa Sacco. She is the Commissioner for the Department of Agriculture, Rural Development, the Blue Economy, and Sustainable Development at the African Union Commission. Your Excellency, the virtual stage is yours, ma'am. Well, unfortunately, we have had the announcement that Her Excellency is not able to be with us for this session. Notably, her office has been quite busy on quite an eventful day for the continent. Nonetheless, we move on with the discussion that is or has brought us here. All youth from all over the world and all stakeholders wanting to know exactly how to extract the best from what God or Mother Nature has given to us, being our agriculture sector and our growing young population who are eager to find employment and better employment to match their skills. And it is on this note that I would like to introduce you to the panel discussion that will be taking place with the panel of experts from across the value chain and across the space, both on the continent and elsewhere in the world, who will be weighing in on what needs to be done and, of course, how we need to do things differently to certainly meet again this time next year with better results to show. Allow me to introduce you to your panelists, which you will see on your screen for your display. Of course, many of their names were quite heavily advertised ahead of the event today, and many will be no strangers for some of you in certain corners. Starting with His Excellency, Mr. Salufo Odriago, who is the Minister of Agriculture, Hydro-Agricultural Development, and Mechanization in Burkina Faso, Mr. Dirk Schatzsnyder, the Director of Rural Development, Food and Natural Resources at the German Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Miss Angelique Jacom, Director of the Office of Small Island Developing States, Least Developed Countries and Landlocked Developing Countries at FAO, Ms. Verpi Stuckey, the Chief of Rural Entrepreneurship, Job Creation, and Human Security Division at UNIDO. We also have a couple of entrepreneurs in the space, agripreneurs, I suppose the right term for them, which I'm quite excited to be hearing from, but they are Mr. Mustafa Sow, CEO at SF Capital and founder of the Mustafa Sow Foundation, Mr. Daniel Ole, agripreneur and CEO of Granutech and also a Forbes 30 under 30. And last but not least, Dr. Tamara Kaunda, an agripreneur and CEO of Billionaire Pharma Agric Solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you to the session and, of course, thank you for your time in participating. Just one last message to the audience. You can participate in the discussion as well by reacting to any comments that the speakers do have to say or posing any questions to what they have said. We will get to some of your comments and questions during the formal session of the Q&A expected to take place a little later on. With that said, allow me to start with the panel. And Minister Odrago, I'd like to begin with you, sir. Because you do come from a part of the world in which unemployment is above the continental average, like here in South Africa. And I believe I can safely say that the challenges to addressing that unemployment are not new. We know them and we know them very well. Notwithstanding, COVID-19 has had an impact on many industries, sir. And I'd like to understand with regard to what it's done to the efforts of Burkina Faso to tackle unemployment there. Have you found that the pandemic has progressed some of the previous efforts, or has it erased what you have been able to achieve in the past, sir?
Okay. Oui. Bonsoir à tous.
Welcome, Minister. It's Fifi. Did you hear my question, sir? Would you like me to repeat it? Minister, are you ready to participate in the discussion, sir?
Non, je n'ai pas bien entendu. Elle peut reprendre, s'il vous plaît.
Right. I believe that I will repeat my question to you. And what I had asked, sir, is your country, just like my country here in South Africa, suffers from a youth unemployment rate that is higher than the continental average. What has COVID-19 done to your efforts to tackle youth unemployment? Has it helped you progress faster in achieving better success for young people? Or has it wiped away some of the efforts that your government has made in the past?
OK, merci. Je voudrais avant tout propos, au nom du gouvernement du Burkina Faso et de tout le peuple burkinabé, vous remercier tout d'abord pour avoir voulu nous inviter à cette importante réunion et ensuite vous témoigner de notre gratitude pour nous avoir donné la parole afin que nous apportions nos contributions sur le potentiel inexploité de la participation des jeunes à la croissance économique des pays les moins avancés, en particulier dans le secteur agricole et agroalimentaire, le rôle du secteur privé dans la contribution à la réalisation des objectifs de développement durable à l'horizon 2030 dans les pays les moins avancés et à la croissance économique des pays. Les impacts de la COVID-19 sur l'agriculture et l'agro-industrie dans les PMA africains et les mesures pour y remédier. Enfin, les meilleures pratiques sur la manière de renforcer la participation des jeunes. C'est donc un grand plaisir que nous participons à cette importante rencontre et soyez-en remerciés. Avant tout, je voudrais renouveler mes remerciements à l'endroit de tous les partenaires techniques et financiers et en particulier ceux qui présentent pour les multiples efforts qui ne cessent de consentir pour le développement du secteur rural. Revenons au sujet et pour ce qui est du Burkina Faso, l'analyse diagnostique de la situation économique et sociale du pays a mis en évidence 3 préoccupations majeures, dont la vulnérabilité du système productif national avec un caractère peu inclusif et faiblement créateur d'emplois productifs. Son caractère peu inclusif et faiblement créateur d'emplois décents réduit considérablement l'exploitation à fond du potentiel agricole. Et pourquoi est-il plus inclusif et faiblement créateur d'emplois? En effet, le secteur agricole burkinabé est fortement tributaire de la pluviométrie et des aléas climatiques. Étant fortement dépendante de la pluviométrie, notre agriculture reste vulnérable au changement climatique. Les efforts de ce changement climatique sont d'abord à observer sur les producteurs qui est obligé de vendre ses actifs de production pour faire face à ses besoins lors de la perte de sa récolte consécutive à la survenance d'un événement climatique externe. Malgré ces stratégies d'adaptation développées par les producteurs, telles que la diversification de la production agricole, l'adoption de cultures adaptées, la recrudescence et la persistance des événements climatiques néfastes rendent celles-ci inefficaces. Donc, cette situation plonge les ménages affectés dans le cercle vicieux de l'insécurité alimentaire et réduit l'attractivité du secteur envers les jeunes. Ainsi, les changements climatiques ont pour conséquence l'enlissement des populations vulnérables dans la pauvreté, aussi bien alimentaire et nutritionnelle que monétaire. Pour ce faire et pour tirer davantage du potentiel inexploité de la participation des jeunes, nous avons mis en place un modèle de développement agricole résilient et performant qui consiste à partir de 3 hectares de terrain, pouvoir mettre en place un système solaire avec un château d'eau avec 3 systèmes d'irrigation, le gravitaire, le goutte à goutte et surtout l'asperseur, qui permet à chaque exploitation de pouvoir exploiter 50 tonnes de céréales, 60 tonnes de légumes et 1 tonne de poissons. En fait, c'est un modèle économique qui ne dépend pas de la saison des pluies, étant entendu que nous, notre production dépend de la saison des pluies. Nous avons mis ce modèle qui est attractif pour permettre aux jeunes de pouvoir aller vers l'agriculture. Et notre objectif est de mettre en place 100 000 modèles. Et ces 100 000 modèles vont permettre de créer 500 000 emplois au Burkina Faso et permettre de pouvoir avoir une production céréalière de plus de 5 millions de tonnes de céréales, 6 millions de tonnes de légumes et 1 500 000 tonnes de poissons. Donc, c'est ce modèle-là que nous avons développé compte tenu du fait que la COVID-19 est venue créer beaucoup plus de problèmes et faire qu'il y a des difficultés pour l'écoulement des produits, ce qui a fait que au niveau de l'État, nous avons mis en place ce système. Ensuite, nous avons développé au niveau des centres de promotion rurale, c'est-à-dire c'est des centres qui forment des jeunes. Au moins, chaque année, 500 jeunes sortent de ces centres-là qui sont équipés pour pouvoir aller travailler dans le domaine agricole. Et ils sont réinsérés dans leur village, dans leur zone, pour jouer le rôle de modèle et permettre à chaque village de s'en inspirer pour pouvoir développer tout l'agriculture, que l'agriculture puisse vraiment aller de l'avant. Nous avons également mis en place ce que nous appelons des centres d'incubateurs. Des centres d'incubateurs dans dans l'école, par exemple, l'école polytechnique de Matoukou et dans les CPR, pour que ces incubés-là puissent avoir toute la formation nécessaire. Et ça constitue des jeunes qui ont quitté l'université pour pouvoir avoir ces formations et aller vraiment s'installer sur le terrain pour pouvoir développer leur agriculture. Et cela, nous avons mis en place dans le terme, parce que nous sommes allés vers la mécanisation. Pour accélérer la mécanisation, nous avons travaillé à mettre des coopératives d'utilisateurs de matériel agricole. C'est-à-dire ces coopératives-là sont constituées de jeunes qui vont bénéficier de tracteurs et qui vont donner des services de labour au niveau de chaque commune. Donc, notre objectif, c'est arriver à atteindre 350 communes avec ces unités de mécanisation. Et aujourd'hui, nous sommes pratiquement à la moitié, à près de 150 communes qui bénéficient de ça. Et ça crée de l'emploi parce que les jeunes se constituent en coopérative et ça crée de l'emploi pour eux, surtout en saison de pluie. C'est pour dire qu'il y a un travail qui est en train de se faire pour permettre à nos jeunes de pouvoir faire face à cette situation. Et les bénéfices de l'ensemble de ces initiatives en cours ne seront optimums que si les effets négatifs de la pandémie à coronavirus sont maîtrisés. Parce que là, ça crée un problème, c'est en train de vouloir freiner notre élan. Néanmoins, nous avons travaillé à endiguer cela. Donc, pour faire face aux mesures prises pour endiguer la pandémie, des stratégies ont été développées, ont été adoptées par les acteurs évoluant dans le domaine de la sécurité alimentaire et nutritionnelle et se sont révélées efficaces. Il s'agit, entre autres, d'une augmentation de l'utilisation des TIC, le télétravail, l'évaluation par téléphone, parce que vous savez qu'à notre niveau, pour pouvoir permettre aux producteurs de pouvoir avoir accès aux itinéraires techniques, nous avons développé un système 3-2-1-3 qui permet aux producteurs de pouvoir avoir accès à toutes les itinéraires techniques, mais avoir accès à des microfilms vidéo qui leur montrent comment, en fonction de toutes ces situations que nous vivons, pouvoir faire face à cela. Et cela a permis également de mettre en place ce que nous avons appelé l'agri-voucher, qui constitue à la distribution des engrais à partir de systèmes électroniques. Le producteur n'a pas besoin de se concentrer, de venir mais chacun reçoit un message qui lui dit, voilà ce que vous devez bénéficier, vous payez, vous recevez un bon, et vous partez dans un magasin pour pouvoir avoir vos engrais. Donc, c'est tout un système qui a été mis en place pour nous permettre vraiment de faire face à la pandémie. Pour terminer mon propos, il est nécessaire pour renforcer la participation des jeunes dans le développement de l'activité agricole, de réduire considérablement la dépendance de notre agriculture à la pluviométrie par la maîtrise totale de l'eau de production, compte tenu du fait que notre production dépend de la saison des pluies avec ses aléas. Deuxièmement, de développer le volet de la transformation des produits agricoles à l'effet de créer un marché d'écoulement de leur production.
Interject, sir.
Voilà, c'est pour terminer.
We will come back to you in the second round of questions.
De développer le mécanisme, c'est presque fini.
About what needs to be done to strengthen.
Donc, voilà ce que je peux dire, de développer le mécanisme de financement adapté, accessible, pour financer leur activité, et cela tout en accompagnant l'encadrement professionnel. Voilà ce que j'avais à dire, et merci de votre attention.
And thank you for your brief last comment, sir. We will hopefully come back to you in the second round of questions just to expand more on the area of concern that you did highlight, being the ability of the sector to respond boldly to effects of climate change. So we'll speak about the financing perhaps that can be addressed further towards maybe mitigation and adaptation strategies in Burkina Faso to strengthen its insulated a lot more from the adverse effects of climate change on agriculture and also the efforts that you've already got going on. But Mr. Schatzsnyder, if I come to you, sir, I was reflecting on the time that we're in ahead of this panel discussion, and I realized that, I mean, this time last year, we were all still trying to get into a full understanding of what this thing called the coronavirus and the COVID-19 pandemic was. It was new, we didn't really understand it, and we didn't know how long it would last. Arguably, it's lasted a lot longer than many of us had expected, and now we've got the emergence of all kinds of variants that have prolonged the fight against it. Nonetheless, sir, I'd like to understand from your perspective, now that we have got a little bit more of a better understanding of the pandemic about 12, 13, 14 months on, what, in your view, are some of the areas of potential and the untapped potential in the agricultural space that can be harnessed to address this growing crisis of youth unemployment?
Thank you, Fifi. I hope I can be heard.
Thank you.
Great. Beforehand, I have to say I'm not representing the Foreign Office of Germany, which is a little mistake in the program. I'm from the Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development. So we are the guys who are tasking GIZ, which probably most of you know. And thank you for your introductory question, Fifi. Indeed, the pandemic puts many achievements of the past at risk, absolutely. Partner countries, and especially LDCs, about which we are talking here in particular, do not have massive resources to address the multiple impacts of the crisis. So, however, the road to recovery and rebuilding and to a resilient future runs definitely through rural areas. Rural development aimed at the community and household level is key to reducing poverty, improving food and nutrition security, creating better and high quality jobs, and thus increasing resilience to shocks like C-19. Therefore, we must step our efforts definitely. To give an example, what we did to react, last spring already, our ministry mobilized more than €1 billion for its Corona reaction program. And about 1/5 of these funds, so roughly 200 million euro, were earmarked for measures focusing on food security and rural development, and nearly as much as these 200 million euro were focusing on social security and maintaining jobs that were in danger. However, starting, let's say, with this particular crisis, we all are sure that other crises will be coming. So we have to learn our lessons. And maybe you allow me 2-3 remarks on the larger framework we have to keep in mind. Number one, this year is crucial for, let's say, the whole system, because we have the United Nations Food System Summit to come in September, which is a major part of, let's say, the international political reaction and the effort to strengthen the system. At the Food System Summit, the international development community focuses on sustainable food systems. And that's why I welcome very much fora like this one here, because they are valuable in bringing together a wide variety of actors working towards this goal, even here with all the different stakeholder sides in this panel. The challenge to provide jobs for a growing young population is well known. Rural youth employment has been a core topic for us as Germany for a long time, and even more intense since we held the last time the G20 presidency 4 years ago, where we started a special rural youth initiative in 2017. So I want to focus on a few key points from our perspective. First, building sustainable food systems is at the core of rural job creation. This includes the whole value chain. That means the production, the processing, and the preparation and marketing of food. Now, the food economy has to be embedded in measures for sustainable economic development and rural transformation. Second, closely linked to food systems, investments in education and skills, especially for the young people, and particularly in digital technologies, the minister was alluding to it, are key. Only with the necessary skills that are tailored to the job market needs, opportunities can be used and the potential of a so-called demographic dividend realized. Third, trade, investments, access to finance, and private sector cooperation is needed to accelerate job creation and employment opportunities, including self-employment opportunities. In this regard, there is also a key role for new technologies and digitization, as it has the potential to help agricultural and food sector bypass a number of long-standing challenges, such as the just mentioned financial access problems, timely decision-making, and resource conservation, while also attracting young people to agriculture. In the wider context, the agreement on an African continental free trade area is an important step to open the immense potential of the African regional market. Better infrastructure and linkages are important to access these markets and benefit from the growing African agri-food economy, which is estimated to expand from $300 billion today to $1,000 billion by 2030. My fourth and last key point is to sum up a little bit and stating that sustainable and resilient agri-food systems, complemented by specific youth employment measures, are essential for providing food as well as jobs, as well as income for a growing young population in the global south, particularly in the LDCs. So joint action and coherent approaches cannot be stressed enough for achieving all these goals, as well as for providing employment opportunities also in the future for the young generation. The Pan-African Opportunities for Youth in Africa program that has already been mentioned by other speakers is a welcome addition to a growing range of initiatives to achieve the objectives under the G20 initiative to promote rural youth employment. It is also a good example of multilateral development partners building on their competitive strengths and working with the African Union and partner countries for harmonizing project implementation. So I would say there is light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schatzsnyder, for those very insightful remarks, and apologies for getting your title incorrect, and thanks once again for correcting us. I am told that Her Excellency Sako has managed to dial in. The thing about these virtual meetings is sometimes technology will be on your side and sometimes it won't. But fortunately, she has been able to log in, and we will get to her in just a moment. But before we do, I just wanted to maybe hear from one of the agripreneurs that are currently in the space. Daniel, if you'll allow me to pick on you as a fellow Forbes 30 under 30, but more importantly, as an entrepreneur that plays quite heavily in the rural space in terms of what your business does, attempting to de-rural farming. Oh, you're having a party there without us. But what I wanted to ask you was what you thought about some of the remarks that have been shared by the speakers. A lot of initiatives have been announced for young people, trying to attract a lot more young people in the agricultural space. What do you make of these initiatives? And are they enough to achieve the goal in which they desire, in your view?
D'accord. Déjà, je tenais à dire merci à toute l'équipe de UNIDO et à tous les organisateurs de cet événement qui nous associent et qui associent la voix de la jeunesse à cet événement important. Pour nous, c'est cela effectivement des avancées. Il y a des années en arrière, on décidait des choses pour des jeunes et auxquels nous n'étions pas associés aujourd'hui. Nous sommes de plus en plus inclus au cadre de décision, d'échange. Pour nous, ce sont là ces avancées que nous saluons déjà et nous sommes vraiment honorés de participer à ce panel de très haut niveau avec des personnalités très importantes. C'est un honneur pour nous d'être là. Habituellement, nous, agripreneurs, nous sommes plus à l'aise derrière dans nos champs, dans nos espaces, et vous nous sortez des champs pour venir partager notre expérience et participer à ces échanges qui sont aussi enrichissants pour nous. C'est déjà pour nous quelque chose à saluer. Alors, effectivement, comme vous l'avez dit, il y a eu, ces dernières années, il y a eu beaucoup d'initiatives qui ont été prises effectivement pour essayer d'améliorer l'employabilité des jeunes, essentiellement en zone rurale, mais aussi de permettre donc aux jeunes qui sont acteurs du monde agricole et du monde rural de pouvoir vivre décemment de leur activité. Mais est-ce que ces actions sont suffisantes? Qu'est-ce que nous faisons, nous, en tant que jeunes pour non se copier? Effectivement, je vais juste sur quelques points, mais avant, je voulais juste dire que le défi donc de ce secteur agricole dont nous parlons, ce défi a aujourd'hui les gens. Et en Afrique subsaharienne, les défis sont de plus en plus grandissants parce que nous parlons d'une zone où les terres arables ne sont plus suffisantes et la paupérisation des terres sont de plus en plus grandissantes. À cela, lorsque nous ajoutons les pertes post-récolte qui représentent 40 à 60% dans le céréales, par exemple, et cette pandémie de COVID-19 est aussi venue nous montrer que le risque de dépendance de ce secteur-là, des intrants, est encore grandissant. Donc, autant de défis, autant de mots dans ce secteur. Et finalement, pour dire vrai, les jeunes sont de plus en plus les plus défavorisés de ce secteur agricole parce que généralement, nous n'avons pas accès aux ressources de production. Voilà, pour des zones comme l'Afrique subsaharienne ou l'ouest de la Côte d'Ivoire dont je suis originaire, Les jeunes ne sont pas propriétaires de terre, comme des femmes. Donc, généralement, nous sommes dans des exploitations familiales dont la gestion est de la responsabilité du chef de ménage. Et finalement, la jeunesse est beaucoup plus utilisée comme la main-d'œuvre, mais ne bénéficie pas très souvent du retour de leur activité. Donc, c'est dans ce contexte-là que nous prononçons pour savoir est-ce que ces initiatives qui sont prises aujourd'hui, est-ce qu'elles sont suffisantes ou jusqu'à où ces initiatives doivent aller et qu'est-ce qui est fait, nous, à notre niveau, pour permettre donc l'émancipation de la jeunesse dans ce secteur-là. Pour moi, les choses qui sont faites aujourd'hui sont très bien, mais pour moi, il faut aller au-delà. Il faut aller au-delà pour permettre à la jeunesse, effectivement, d'être en mesure de faire valoir son savoir-faire et son génie créateur. Je suis de ceux qui pensent qu'aujourd'hui, en Afrique et dans ces pays moins avancés, la jeunesse est une opportunité. Est une opportunité de par sa créativité, est une opportunité de par sa résilience naturelle, mais aussi est une opportunité de par sa volonté de rester sur son territoire, de faire changer les choses et d'être une source de création elle-même d'emploi pour elle, mais aussi pour ses pairs. C'est pourquoi je pense qu'aujourd'hui, il faut aller au-delà pour exploiter cette créativité, ce potentiel des jeunes-là dans ces pays moins développés et leur donner l'opportunité de ne pas être seulement des spectateurs, mais d'être les acteurs dans les solutions qui sont mises en œuvre et qui sont proposées. Parce que plus nous allons vers ces solutions inclusives qui prennent en compte ces jeunes, mieux nous aurons, mieux nous aurons beaucoup plus d'impact. Je voulais déjà souligner cela. Par ailleurs, dire qu'effectivement, nous, il y a des initiatives que nous prenons localement. Déjà, à l'ouest du pays, nous avons mis en place le premier Fab Lab agricole en Afrique de l'Ouest, labellisé Fab Lab solidaire par la Fondation Orange France, qui aujourd'hui est un espace d'intelligence collective qui permet aux jeunes ruraux de décloisonner leurs compétences, de décloisonner l'innovation scientifique et de mutualiser leurs compétences pour apporter les solutions qui répondent aux défis qui sont les nôtres. Donc ça, c'est déjà ce type d'initiative qui, pour moi, peut passer à l'échelle et permettre aux solutions qui sont lancées d'être plus inclusives possible et de pouvoir avoir beaucoup plus d'impact et de créer des emplois qui sont plus décents. Parce que de plus en plus, nous allons vers des solutions intégrées. Et vu les défis de notre secteur agricole et de notre monde rural, les solutions qui auront beaucoup plus d'impact sont des solutions qui empruntent une démarche intégrée et qui prennent en compte toute la chaîne de valeur. Et c'est vers ces solutions que nous pourrons effectivement réduire de façon considérable le taux de pauvreté dans nos mondes ruraux, mais aussi permettre de créer des emplois qui soient plus décents pour les jeunes, plus inclusifs et plus durables. Voilà.
Agreed there, Daniel. Thanks so much for your contribution. I think that we're all quite taken away by how much everyone has to say on this all-important topic. Of course, a lot is there to be said, but there's not a lot of time, however. And I would just like to ask the speakers that are going to follow, just for the interest of time, to keep their opening remarks a little briefer. I do apologize that I'll have to cut you off in terms of what you have to say. Perhaps an opportunity for a follow-up meeting or a follow-up discussion after this one, as we get all the inputs ahead of the first meeting happening in Dakar next in Qatar, Doha next year. Also, just another reminder to the audience that you can make use of the translation facility. If you don't know how to use it, you just click on that icon that does look like a planet at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And then you just select the language in which you want the translation to be. And we have a fantastic translator. I'm not French speaking, unfortunately, myself, but I have been able to hear everything that has been communicated from our French speakers. So please do the same. Just staying with the spirit of getting an insider's view, an agripreneur's view, and also a young person's view and voice to the table of forming a solution to harnessing the potential of the agricultural sector for the youth. I'd like to get some input from Dr. Tamara, if you are there with us. What do you make of everything that has been said so far, but also the initiatives that you are aware of that are currently undergo, trying to attract more youth into the sector? Clearly, something is not working as it should, given that there's not enough of people like Daniel and people like yourselves that are making news and making headlines. So just your input on what needs to be done to change this narrative.
Hello, everyone. I'm quite a little bit nervous. Yeah, but I'm really humbled to be part of this panel, and I hope going forward something can be done.
You know what? It seems that we have lost Tamara there. So let us give her a moment or two to try and reconnect, and we will get back to her and hear her thoughts. I'm also told, as I did mention, that Her Excellency Sako is with us. And I am wondering if Her Excellency can just join us and mute herself and show us her video, just to share some of her messages and her thoughts on behalf of the African Union as we do celebrate Africa's birthday. Ma'am, the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor. Apologies for joining you late. It was not my fault. It was not the issue with where I am. They told me it was 20 p.m. That was what my team told me, that the meeting was starting at 20 p.m. Ethiopian time. That's why I connected at this moment. It was not connection problem. At times we used to have connection problem, but it was because of a lack of alignment of the time from where you were or the meeting is taking place and where I am. Thank you. With this, without no ado, let me start presenting my keynote address and what is the strategy in Africa concerning the youth employment. I thank you for giving me the floor once again. Mr. Lee Young, Director General of UNIDO, if he's still present. Dr. Yu Dong-Yu, Director General of FAO, dear friend, if he's still present. Distinguished participants, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and all protocols duly observed. Let me begin by thanking the UNIDO and FAO for the invitation to present a keynote address at this important webinar. The Istanbul Program of Action for LDCs for the decades 2011-2020 is coming to an end. The General Assembly is convening the 5th United Nations Conference on the least developed countries at the head of state and governments level in Doha, Qatar, from 23rd to 27 January 2020. Hopefully, our deliberation today will serve as input to this meeting. Moreover, since 1971, when the LDCs category was created by the United Nations, African countries have dominated the list. 6 decades later, that is today, Africa still tops this list, accounting for 33 out of the 47 LDCs globally. These countries face multiple challenges, which has been aggravated by COVID-19, including poor deployment of vaccines. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, youth unemployment is a major challenge in the African LDCs. World Bank statistics indicates that the LDCs as a group has a young employment rate of 9.5% for the 15 to 24 years olds. Cohort which is low than 12.4% in sub-Saharan Africa. The rate of African LDC range between 0.2%, 2.1% for Libya, to 32.1% in Sudan, and 32.4% in Lesotho. Significantly, young people are 3 times as likely as adults to be unemployed, partly because of major structural barriers preventing them from entering the levy, a key role in solving the youth employment challenges in the African LDCs, taking advantage of
Your Excellency, ma'am,
development.
do you apologize to in your speech, ma'am? We seem to be having a bit of issues on our end, hearing you correctly. Can I just ask if I can just give you a few moments just to try and rectify the situation? It's coming across in a similar manner that we did experience with Tamara a little earlier. So if I can just go to her really briefly while you perhaps try and see on your end if there's anything you can do. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your understanding. And Tamara, are you back?
I don't understand because I have another appointment. I cannot stay more than 5 minutes now from now. So what do I end here and send you my statement? Because I have another appointment. I've been on it this morning.
Ma'am, thank you so much for that offer. We humbly apologize once again, and we thank you so much for your time today with us, and we look forward to receiving your statement, ma'am.
A lot of webinars, and I still have the last one to attend. You might give me 5 minutes.
All right, ma'am, it's just as I said, there's just some challenges regarding the your audio, but again, we look forward to your statement, and we humbly apologize for this, and thank you so much for the statement that we'll receive in future. Tamara, are you still there? All right.
Yeah, I'm back. I don't know what happened, but okay, yes. So like I was saying, we've been singing over and over about youth involvement in agriculture, and how we need to change how the young people in Africa look at it. I always say we need to make agriculture sexy to the young people. They need to know that it's something that is attractive, something that is a solution to the problems that we have. But for some unknown reason, of course, it has been known like something for the odd, something for the failures, and something, for the people who've got nothing to do in life. It's with this effort that I myself have been involved as a medical doctor, being a young professional, to just try and change how young people look at agriculture. But you find that even bigger organizations like, they tend to use, the
Tamara, I would hear a little more.
Of agriculture, why they show, odd people.
Hey, I'd love to, sorry to cut you in as well. I'd love to hear a lot more of what you have to say. Again, connectivity issues. Perhaps we can come back to your remarks a little later on in the program if there is time. I do love what you have said about making agriculture a lot more sexy to young people. Of course, it's not a sector that a lot of young people aspire to work in, because it's not as sexy as perhaps putting on a suit and putting on a pair of heels and walking into a corporate office, but that does not mean it is not valuable, and certainly that perspective needs to be changed. But Ms. Angelica, if I can just come to you just for some brief thoughts and comments on this discussion, what has been said so far, and just your view on how we do move forward as LDCs in harnessing the potential for agriculture for the youth.
So thank you, Fifi, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, colleagues. Happy Africa Day. I think it's important to note that productive jobs are in short supply in many LDCs. In sub-Saharan Africa, 84% of the region's working population is employed on an informal basis only, with no permanent contracts, calculable income, or employment protection. In total, there are 360 million people in the labor force who lack decent work. Population growth is seeing 13 million new individuals either enter the labor market each year, and this figure is rising. In order to remove the huge pool of informal work with a single generation into private employment to those seeking new work, 25 million or so new jobs enabling the earning of a decent livelihood would be need to be created each year. If this is not achieved, then the region is at risk of experiencing an unprecedented level of internal conflict, displacement, and migration. But where is all this work supposed to come from? Agriculture presents a largely untapped reservoir of employment opportunities. Efforts should focus on the untapped potential from farm and non-farm employment in the agricultural sector within the agri-food systems. The drivers for change should be identified on both the labor demand and supply side, including skills development and access to social protection, but also increased public and private investment in rural areas and business development. Furthermore, African agribusinesses are expected to create a market worth of 1 trillion by 2030. So agriculture and agribusiness have an invaluable and untapped potential to address youth employment challenges. So FAO already works with government and supports them in the design and implementation of strategies that more effectively target rural youth. FAO is working with governments to integrate youth issues into national agriculture investment plans. In Nigeria, for instance, it has supported the design of an investment plan for the National Youth Employment in Agricultural Program, YEEP. Furthermore, it supports governments jointly with stakeholders to generate more country-specific research to advise stakeholders about employment conditions and opportunities in their respective countries. This can include analysis of a given country's labor market conditions, the youth employment situation, and untapped opportunities for rural employment generation. And in this vein, it is important to note that partnering with the private sector to guarantee better employment for prospects for youth is key. This is some of the ways that FAO is helping to reach the youth and to harness all these capacities that the youth have in LDCs to reach a brighter future, the Sustainable Development Goals, and leave no one behind. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Angelica. And I do know that we are still due to hear from Ms. Verpi and also Mustafa. And I would ask, unfortunately, that if you will allow me to split 5 minutes between the both of you. And this is because we have got some wonderful messages from youth that were recorded ahead of today's session, which I really hope that we can get to. And I hope that after those messages, I will be able to give you the time, that's Verpi and Mustafa, that I have robbed from you at this juncture. So if we can just get the thoughts from Ms. Verpi first, and then we'll close off with Mustafa for this round.
Thank you very much, Fifi. I will be very short, and I know that so much has been said already, but I want to tap into the gender issue and also an example of non-farm activities, because in the structural transformation of agribusiness, non-farm job opportunities are also very important. The example is from Ethiopia, where UNIDO has been working on heavy-duty equipment manufacturing and skills development programs for road constructions and so forth. And these are traditionally kind of male-oriented areas. And we wanted to increase the female participation in this area. And our assumption was that it's the families and employers who prevent females entering this area. But after a careful assessment, we found out that it's the lack of role models. So the fact that young women doesn't enter this domain is that they have not seen young females working in this field. And therefore we could tweak our outreach opportunities in projects in a way that we highlighted young female trainers, operators in this heavy duty equipment field. I don't know how much I have time left, but I also wanted to mention the opportunities for youth in Africa program, which our DGs already mentioned, and the fact that the program is addressing short-term employment opportunities, long-term employment opportunities, and also contributing to policy dialogue. So very thankful to be here with our sister agency, FAO, and be part of this excellent program. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I agree with you 100%. I mean, I've done quite a number of stories and had the opportunity to visit a number of farms here in South Africa. And I must say, I have yet to meet a female farmer, not to say that they are not there, but that representation that you talk about at a gender level is even a problem in a more developed country like mine. But we'll hopefully get more into the gender issue and how to close the gap in the space, as I do believe that we are the majority on the continent in terms of women. But Mustafa, just final thoughts from you before we hear from some of the attendees, who, by the way, thank you so much for your engagement so far. One of the suggestions that have come from the audience members to perhaps improve the transmission is that all the speakers who are not speaking perhaps turn off their videos. They believe perhaps this can help with the transmission for others who are having connectivity issues. I'm open for trying all forms of suggestions. But Mustafa, your thoughts as a financier, a man who advises private sector on deals, what are the deals you are advising or seeing in the agricultural sector, in LDCs, and how do we get more?
Fifi, thanks much for the invitation, and happy Africa Days for all of you. Let's not forget to contextualize our discussions. It's a COVID period, and we have to, think of, that the next move. I mean, it's a tough situation, but like I always said, there is an opportunity in every tough situation. And I do believe that, this COVID situation should allow African leaders and their partners to rethink our priorities. I always give the example of, for example, infrastructure. The last 20 years, we have been very creative in terms of putting in place a way to finance our infrastructure need. Yet today, COVID has shown that the basic priority, the most important priority for our continent is to feed our populations, which means that the heart of our strategy and the heart of our priority should be agriculture, because by putting agriculture in the heart of our strategy, we solve hunger issue, we solve employment, and most importantly, we move toward industrializations that will help us have sustainable growth. And I think this should be the focus of government. I also want to, mention or talk about what our colleague Tamara has mentioned. One of the challenges why agriculture is not where it's supposed to be. In Africa, agriculture is not perceived as a sexy business. If you look at, for example, recently with fintech and technology, what has been invested, putting youth in the front center of these battles, which has produced significant results. I think we should leverage from that and go back to the resources with agriculture. We have, one of the, not one of the, but the youngest population on Earth. And by 2015, 60% of 1.3 billion for the population in Africa need to find jobs. It can be an opportunity or a threat. And it's indeed an opportunity. So we need to make it an opportunity. And that is a job and the role of every leader in this continent with, partners such as the UNIDO, FAO, African Union, United Nations. We must support together. We must bind forces together to put agriculture in the center of Africa priority, because to my view, this is the only way to fight illegal immigration. This is the only way to charter a path where Africa will feed themselves, when African youth will find a job and then build the Africa we want by 2015. Thanks.
Thanks, Mustafa, for that response, short and sweet, but I hear and agree with you 100%. And, we have seen what the resilience of the agricultural sector in many parts of the world, even managing to grow in times whereby the rest of the economy is plunged into a recession. So that really speaks to the resilience and the potential that the sector does have. And I agree with you wholeheartedly that it should be a lot more in the center of government's plans for economic recovery, particularly here on the continent. But as I did say, we do have quite a number of messages that have come from the youth on the continent. It's Daniel that did mention that UNIDO and FAO have given such a wonderful platform in helping or bringing young people to the table to table some of the solutions around policy that could help the sector and themselves reach their potential. So let's hear a couple of those messages so far. And if you'll allow me to introduce the first two messages that we'll be hearing from, it is from the speakers who are coming from Zambia and Zimbabwe, I believe. So let's listen in to some of their comments and proposals on how to get this right.
Hi, my name is Mope. I'm in management accounting and I am farming small scale in Lusaka, Zambia. Here's my question for you. Although the youth are represented by older groups in decision making at local and national level, it's alarming how seldom young people are not consulted on policies that affect them and are supposedly for their benefit. How then do we make the transition to creating policy that is relevant to the youth in a more transparent and collaborative way? Furthermore, how do we implement systems that create accountability on both ends and systems that assess the effectiveness of these policies post-implementation? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tafadzwa. I'm from Zimbabwe. I'm an entrepreneur, and here's my question for you. How can an African smallholder safeguard themselves from economic vulnerabilities and inequalities?
Mustafa, I see that you're the first person that has popped up on the screen, so perhaps you can take the last question. I think it will be a lot more relevant to your space about safeguarding and protecting oneself from some of the adversities right now. We're talking about COVID-19. And to the rest of the audience, Mustafa, before you do weigh in on that question, I would like to thank you for some of the questions that have come through so far. We are going to start the formal Q&A session session where you will have the opportunity to have your say. You can do so in the chat, send through whatever you would like to voice out, and also know that feel free to communicate in a language of your comfort between English and French. There will be interpretation. So Mustafa, the question regarding smallholders safeguarding their businesses in adverse times, what would you say to that young entrepreneur?
Thanks. I think this will allow me to address a point in terms of detailing what government's action plan actually should be in order to put youth in the center of their decision making when it comes to employment. And I think the first question, I'm not going to touch it. I'll answer the second one. But that I see there is an interconnection with these two, because when you don't put the youth in the heart of your decision-making progress, you cannot make the right decisions for someone without that person being involved. And some of the action, for example, that government need to put in place to promote entrepreneurship within the agriculture, other than making it sexy, of course, is one thing they could do is organize land allocation. If you look at agriculture, someone has just said it, and it's come to land ownership. You just need, in many countries, the giants, the millionaire who can come and buy land. And the government should put in place, a resource land allocations to promote this youth entrepreneurship. They can put in place, so for example, some loan programs, because if you look at the financing, it would be easier today to finance agriculture within our internal resources than infrastructure, because infrastructure require long-term financing, and agriculture with mid-term financing, you can solve the problems. These are little things that governments can do to solve both issues, involve youth in the decision-making progress, but also make sure that agriculture is sexy enough to appeal youth, and then also protect youth from the bigger, because it all comes about organization, and those organizations come with one word or two words: a political will. And this is the things that our leaders need to put in their heart of their strategy for solving the Africa youth unemployment rate.
Talking about political will, Minister Odrago, I am hoping that we still have you on the line, sir.
Oui, je suis parmi vous.
Wonderful, sir. So let's talk about the political will. Tamaris from Zambia spoke about the fact that young people need to be invited to the table to talk about these policy proposals, to help invite them in. And so you mentioned a lot of initiatives that the government of Burkina Faso has. To what degree have you consulted young people in framing some of those policies? So, and also, what are you doing to put in place systems of accountability and put in place systems to measure your efficiencies of these programs?
Oui, merci. C'est pour vous dire qu'au niveau du Burkina Faso, nous impliquons étroitement les jeunes dans la prise de décision. C'est pourquoi au niveau du gouvernement, nous avons mis en place des services fonciers ruraux dans toutes les communes qui permettent à chaque jeune qui a disposé d'un terrain de pouvoir avoir une attestation de possession foncière. C'est-à-dire que ça permet aux jeunes d'avoir un terrain sécurisé. Et ensuite, nous avons mis en place ce que nous appelons le Fonds de développement agricole, qui est un fonds qui permet à tout jeune de pouvoir proposer son idée de projet et pouvoir avoir accès au financement. C'est pourquoi également nous avons mis en place des incubateurs un peu partout dans le pays pour pouvoir former ces jeunes, surtout qui sortent de l'université ou bien qui sont dans des zones rurales, pour que après ces différentes formations, ils puissent être réinstaller sur leur terre et pouvoir exercer l'agriculture conformément à leurs besoins. C'est pour vous dire qu'au niveau du Burkina Faso, les initiatives que nous avons prises, notamment l'initiative produire 1 million de tonnes de riz par an, parce que nous savons qu'avec la pandémie, la COVID-19 a montré que le ravitaillement du pays en riz est une préoccupation fondamentale, ce qui fait que nous travaillons à la maîtrise totale de l'eau pour dégager des parcelles d'exploitation et qui seront mis à la disposition des jeunes pour que ces jeunes-là puissent produire et pouvoir faire face à leurs besoins. C'est pour vous dire que dans ces politiques, il y a un travail qui est fait au niveau de la base au sommet, à partir des jeunes, pour qu'ils puissent identifier quel type d'investissement ils veulent et quel type d'accompagnement ils veulent pour que ensemble, nous puissions avoir des startups qui vont permettre à d'autres jeunes de s'en inspirer. Et au niveau du ministère de l'Agriculture, par exemple, nous faisons sortir chaque fois des revues avec des modèles agricoles qui permettent aux jeunes de s'en inspirer pour pouvoir créer leur modèle. C'est pour vous dire que la volonté politique qui est et un travail est en train de faire au niveau du Burkina Faso pour inverser la tendance et permettre aux jeunes de pouvoir avoir accès à l'emploi.
Thank you. Thank you. This is great to hear, sir. And thank you so much for your brief response in the interest of time that is fast running away from us. Could I get the thoughts of Angelica and also Dirk to respond to some of the questions, the videos that we did hear from the amazing young people from Zambia and Zimbabwe? And again, brief comments, if 1 minute is possible, that would be absolutely fantastic. And Angelica, to begin with you, and then followed by Dirk.
Thank you, Fifi. I think many of the points were mentioned by the last two speakers. I mean, there is the issue of attractiveness of the agricultural sector for young people. And as the world's food is really being produced by aging smallholder farmers, who are less likely to adopt the newer technologies that are needed to sustainably increase the agricultural productivity and ultimately feed the growing world, and while protecting the environment. So re-engaging youth in agriculture is very key. As the speakers had mentioned, investment is crucial for rural economic growth. And our activities in FAO focus on young people as a priority, were also included in as a cross-cutting theme in our strategic framework. That said, there's also another important element that needs to be taken into account. Entrepreneurship in agriculture is not an option for many young people because they don't have the appropriate skills or the appropriate knowledge, the land, the access to credit markets. So an inclusive approach is required for decent jobs for all types of youth, focusing on additional constraints faced by marginalized youth. Comprehensive programs that combine skills training with additional education, mentoring, assets transfers are more likely to alleviate their specific constraints. This would enable us to move beyond harvesting a low-hanging fruit to reap the rewards of the full range of options that agriculture and agri-food transformation have to offer Africa's youth. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dirk, anything further to add on your side?
Yes, Fifi, thank you. Maybe I could just pick up your excellent comment on the fact that young people have to be invited. I absolutely agree. And we try to work on this and contribute on this on different levels where we are acting. But first and foremost, thank you to Monsieur le Ministre. We hope that our partner countries are working on a continuous basis on this special effect, getting the young people involved and creating a good framework for that. In our work, we have, as I tried to outline in my first remarks, special focus on young people and especially also young women or girls that are in the sector, because this group is really a sort of change agent from our point of view, because they are the future and there's no future without them. So we try to support a positive framework for them, both in our development cooperation, for example, with our special initiative training and job creation, but also we try to give a backup to have in the future a better lobby. For example, we are supporting young farmers associations in various countries, for example, Uganda, pairing them up with German young farmers associations for exchange of experience and let's say motivating each other and picking up new ideas from each other. And of course, and that's my last point, wherever we are negotiating with partner countries about the sector of agriculture, we bring that on the table and try to work in a cooperative way with our partner countries to improve the framework for this very important group. Thank you.
Thanks, Dirk. It is encouraging, I must say, to hear all the work that is being done within the agricultural sector to try and harvest the low-hanging fruit, particularly as it pertains to employment opportunities for the youth. The panel has spoken at length on behalf of its various institutions about how seriously youth unemployment on the continent is being taken. And there is a recognition of the window of hope of agriculture to help and alleviate the rate of unemployment. What is also quite encouraging is the different approach that is being taken this time around of inviting young people to the table to pull up a chair and help craft some of the policies that can help the sector grow. I think that we are in agreement, however, that a lot more still needs to be done for the sector to fully realize its potential. For starters, making the sector sexy and attractive for young people to want to find work, and also recognizing that not everyone wants to and not everyone can be agripreneurs. Some of us are quite happy being the worker bees, and therefore any policies and initiatives that are bedded down need to be ones that are inclusive for all, such that no one gets left behind. With that said, this does bring us to the end of this evening's session. I would like to thank all the speakers and all the panelists that joined us today and thank them for sharing their insights with us. I'd like to thank UNIDO and FOA for putting this platform together and allowing us to engage. And of course, I'd like to thank yourselves as wonderful audience members for attending this evening and for your time. Hopefully, when we meet next time around, it will be to discuss the milestones that have been achieved following this conversation and also further progress that we intend on making. Until then, from myself, Fifi Peters, it's bye for now.